All right. I am so excited. Today I have Darren Greninger with me. Darren is an attorney turned writer who has studied screenwriting with Jacob Krueger, Corey Mandell, Dominic Morgan, and others. He created his Substack publication, No Rules Fiction, to share the insights he's learned about screenwriting and story design. He's currently focused on obliterating remaining weaknesses in his screenwriting with a mentor at the Jacob Krueger Studio. And in a content world where too many stories are about bad people doing bad things, he favors writing positive stories with heart that offer wisdom about life. Welcome, Darren. I'm so excited to talk with you today.
Thank you. Yeah, it's going to be great to talk to you too, Katie. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course. No, of course, attorney turned screenwriter. Tell me a little bit about how that journey went down.
Sure. Yeah. So, like a lot of lawyers, I went to law school because I enjoyed writing. And I thought this is a practical way to make a living as someone who likes writing. And, plenty of lawyers do well, but I ended up falling into document review, which is a common fate for a lot of attorneys where you're just reviewing documents relating to lawsuits. And I slowly started gravitating back towards just pure writing work. So I worked at NIH for a time, working on policy issues, and then as a science writer, and currently doing some copywriting while I continue to hone my screenwriting.
That's awesome. And it's so nice to hear sort of the journey that you've taken between like, okay, you started on this path with a specific purpose. And I really like that you were like, okay, this isn't quite for me. So I'm going to just keep adjusting. Like I know where I want to take this, and I'm going to take the steps where I can still keep doing what I want to be doing in just a different iteration until I get where I want to be. And what I love so much about that is it connects so well with your Substack publication, No Rules Fiction, because you talk about how, there really aren't any rules. It's nice to know the processes. But at the end of the day, once you know them, then you can start to break them. So I would love to hear a little bit about the idea behind No Rules Fiction and sort of how you came up with, okay, this is something that's really important to me and I want to share it with other writers as well.
Sure, yeah. So there's tons of resources out there about novel writing and screenwriting. And like a lot of aspiring fiction writers, I started with some books. And, some are better than others. But once I moved to online classes, what I began to learn is that, most professional writers don't follow the story structure systems in these books, and they have a different process and approach. And so I thought I should create this Substack publication to help share the lessons I've learned and maybe save other people time from making the mistakes that I did where I was looking at things that weren't as helpful as other resources I found later.
Absolutely. And I know I have used your publication when I have been working on my own fiction writing as a nice reference of like, okay, this is sort of the way that story design can work, but you also, it's like a very good introduction of this is the rule, but you also don't have to follow it. So it's like that great sort of blend of both. And so I know you mentioned that you have done these workshops, you've done these classes, and you have through these learned a lot of lessons. So how many would you say that you have attended between classes, workshops, online, or in person? How many do you think that you've done in your time sort of on the screenwriting journey?
Oh yeah, many. I've enough that I've lost count, and they've all been online. Although with Jacob Krueger, he does have in-person classes in New York. But I'm not in the New York City area anymore. But yeah, it's at least, eight classes at this point and many more than that. Like I've done probably six classes just in one program, and then I've taken classes in others. So, but the ones that I've done have been good in that they've been very complementary. Like some have taught certain skills and others have focused on other aspects. So I feel like altogether they've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, I mean, eight classes, it sounds like you would definitely be taking in a ton of information. And, again, to sort of talk about the purpose of your Substack, it's when you have all of this information, then you feel like you have a lot more freedom to be able to sort of mix and match because you understand the basics. You've sort of established the ladder for yourself. And now you feel a little bit more comfortable sort of leaning off to the side and trying something this way, leaning off to this way and trying something that way. but it gives you that really nice foundation. So I would love to hear a little bit about either the first workshop you attended or like the first really memorable like lesson, something that it really stuck with you. You were like, oh, I totally get this, and this is going to make a difference in my writing. I can tell.
Sure, yeah. So one of the things that I first learned and that made a big impression was working with Corey Mandell. He has an entry-level professional screenwriting and television class, and he definitely talks about how most writers don't follow story structure systems, and what he teaches in his class are how to write compelling scenes, because he says if you can't write an interesting scene, all of the story structure in the world is going to save you because the reader will stop reading. And so, what he emphasizes a lot in his initial class is writing in what he calls compelling conflict. And this is where one character has a goal, and they're encountering resistance of some kind, often from another character. And the thing, though, that is different about how he teaches that, because what I just described probably sounds very basic, is he emphasizes the importance of knowing all of the pieces of context you need to give to the reader to make them care, and how you have to order that context in a certain way so that it lands with the reader in the right way. So, like, imagine you went to a boxing match and you knew nothing about the combatants. You'd probably find the fight somewhat interesting, but if you know particular circumstances about them, it's going to be much more engaging. And so you always have to give the reader the context they need to fully invest in the conflict they're about to watch, and to know what's going to matter, and when it's resolved too. Like, for example, if you don't make it super clear what the explicit achievable goal is, then at the end of the scene the reader doesn't really know if the character won or lost. Similarly, if you haven't made clear what the stakes are, then the reader's reading the scene, but they don't really think it matters, or that it's that all that important. So all these little things are really helpful. And what you do in his classes is you apply his approach, and then you test your scenes with readers, and you ask them, okay, when was the goal made clear to you in the scene? When were the stakes made clear? And what you discover, of course, is that things that you thought were clear weren't. And so you learn how you have to be super explicit and intentional in getting across the ideas of a scene.
Yes, it reminds me a lot of recipe writing. In a former life, I was a personal chef, and it reminds me of like you don't really know until you're reading it back, or like you have that additional context, and then you're like, oh, I understand how I knew what was happening here because I've gone through this. I'm so emotionally invested in what's happening, and so much exists in my head. I sometimes forget what context I've already provided. And as a result, I'm now seeing it from that other perspective where there's so much missing that they don't have the same emotional investment that I do. So it's really interesting to sort of see that example across different fields. But at the end of the day, it's the same idea that like you need to have emotional investment. Do you go to these courses, or when you're doing a class, doing a workshop, do you have an idea or like a piece of work that you already have sort of in progress that you're hoping to make traction on? Or do you go into them with a little bit more, not to imply that there's a lack of an open mind with the first example, but I guess it's, do you go in with sort of, I'm hoping that this will breed some ideas for me? Or do you go in with, I have an idea that I'm hoping I will be able to give more life to through this workshop?
Yeah, no, I definitely would say I go in with an idea, and I hope the workshop will provide tools to help bring it to fruition. But one of the things that Corey at least emphasized was that you wouldn't be writing a script in the class. And he made the analogy to if you were to do an improv comedy class where you don't start out by going on stage before an audience, you have to sort of build up the necessary skills first. And so at times it could be frustrating because you feel like, when am I going to do some real screenwriting instead of just these exercises? But then when you get to the real screenwriting, you realize you have all this muscle memory built up. And so you're much more capable of executing on what you're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely. And that makes a ton of sense because it's just like literally anything else when you're going through the motions. Sometimes you don't necessarily see the end goal, and you're just sort of so in the actual step in front of you. And then you look up and you realize, oh, look at all of the steps that I have taken. Look at all of this progress that I have made. I have been so focused on this one specific task, or like working through the scene this way, or, the introducing the stakes for the scene in the right way that gives the audience the emotional connection. So it's really interesting to hear about. So for someone who was there, like, I want to start screenwriting. It's something that I've always wanted to do, but I've never taken the jump in. I've never done anything like this, but I have an idea that I think could be great. Is there like a specific class or workshop that you recommend? What would be your sort of first initial step that you would recommend for somebody in that position, since you have so much experience doing this?
Yeah, and I should say all of the classes that you mentioned in introducing me are ones I would recommend for sure. And like I said, they're complementary. I would either start with Corey's classes or Jacob's flagship class, which is Write Your Screenplay. And they have slightly different approaches, those two teachers. I think they're complementary, so maybe do both. But the other thing I would definitely recommend, of course, is reading feature screenplays, which are pretty easy to get your hands on these days. So you can definitely get the ones that are nominated for Oscars because typically they release them as PDFs. And even ones that haven't been produced yet, I've been able to get my hands on by
Wow.
going to Script Shadow and going to the comments. Like I just saw a trailer the other day for After the Hunt with Julia Roberts, and I had read that months ago. So maybe I shouldn't say this. Maybe Script Shadow doesn't want me revealing this, but they are a good source. Like I've gotten blacklist scripts from there. So yeah, it just helps to read them, and I'd start with those two classes. And just the other thing I would do is set the expectation that this is a marathon journey, because what I read when I started and was skeptical of was everyone says it takes 10 years from when you get serious to sort of get to a professional level. And I'm like, oh, that seems like a long time. Surely I can do it faster. And my first class was back in 2015. So I'm sort of at that 10-year mark, and I do feel like I've come a long, long way. And when I look back, I realize how little I understood then. So yeah, those are the two classes I'd start with. The Dominic Morgan one is great too, but I think it's a little more advanced because what he focuses on is not so much scene structure or story structure, but the actual words on the page, which these other
Mm.
classes, ironically, don't focus so much on. So he's really focused on, being artful in your scene description and action lines, in your dialogue, and incorporating voice into the work itself. So those are sort of like higher level skills that once you've mastered the structural basics, you can focus on later.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so helpful to hear that too, because hearing those two descriptions, it's like, oh, if you don't necessarily have that foundation laid for yourself, if you go into this other workshop that's talking a lot more about your approach to the writing and the words, you might feel a little lost. So that's really, really helpful. I'm so glad that you shared that. Thank you. So one final question that I want to ask is there any lesson, piece of advice, piece of screenwriting? Is there something that you heard and it has stuck with you to the point where it is now just like so ingrained in part of your practice that you're like, I don't know where I would be without this?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that. I wish it would be what I was going to say is more practical. I'll try to think of something practical in a minute, but the thing that really stands out to me, and it sounds like it's more like a warning than a helpful piece of advice, is that readers will judge you on the first page, and their judgment will not change no matter how good the rest of the pages are. And so, and in fact, they'll say that I've never been wrong about my judgment. So they'll say if like a script is weak on page one, it typically doesn't recover or get better. And so I think a critical skill is sort of to learn how to be engaging through each line and to get the reader to keep reading. Um, but in terms of something more practical, here's one that I think I struggled with in the past, and I recently learned it. And I think it goes against people's natural instincts, and that's that your main character in particular and your characters in general should be extreme and or intense. And so the mistake I always made was I would try to write a character who's feels very grounded and sort of reacts in the way that normal people do. And I think you can get away with this more in a novel where you're relying on interiority, but in a movie that just sort of plays as boring and not that compelling.
Mhm.
So I think that's a piece of advice that is really stuck with me. And I learned that through the workshop I'm doing now with a working screenwriter. And that's one of the pieces of advice he really hammers.
I love that because it really also takes this connection of like what you said with the first line too, in a novel, we've all read a novel where we're like, oh, it's kind of slow on the upkeep, but then it gets good. But we've also all watched a movie where it was like it was started slow, so I turned it off. So there is that like difference in commitment because you're committing, in writing in excuse me, in reading a novel, you're like, okay, I'm in this for a long haul, so I can like ride it out a little bit. If you're watching a movie and it starts off boring, or even if you're reading a screenplay and the initial, if it doesn't catch you, you're not going to put any more time into it. So I think that those are both great, great pieces of advice, especially for someone who hasn't done this before. Go big, go extreme. It almost sounds like go bigger than you think. You won't be pulling back, but you can always go a little bit bigger.
Yes, I think that's a good way to summarize it. Yeah, you can always go pull it back if you need to, but yeah, you sort of the way they phrase it in Jacob Krueger Studios, you have to turn up the volume on your character so that they land and register with people more clearly.
I love that. Oh, I love that so much. Oh my gosh, this has been so fun. I know I have personally, my brain has been like going in the back of my mind, like these are so helpful. I'm so glad that I have this recording because I'm going to re-reference this 100%.
Great, great. I'm glad it was helpful.
Absolutely. Are you ready for the Baker's Dozen?
Yes, yes, and I'll try not to think too much. I'll try to just spit out my thoughts without censorship, but we'll see.
Okay, I love that. All right, so Baker's Dozen, 13 rapid question and answers to get to know Darren a little bit better. So, what is in your line sight right at this moment?
Oh, there's a picture of Switzerland that I'm looking at. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Oh my goodness, I'm jealous.
Haven't been yet. It's just an art.com purchase.
That's okay. Manifesting it, just
Yeah.
seeing it.
Uh-huh.
Analog or digital?
Digital.
What is the your favorite part of your morning?
Oh, I suppose it is having my cereal or oatmeal, which is very boring, but
That's
uh,
okay. What is the best thing that you ate in the last week?
oh, in the last week I had a very good vegan meatball sub from DC Vegan.
Ooh, that sounds yummy. I love mixing in a vegan and vegetarian meal. Who would play you in a movie about your life?
Oh, I fear it would be Jesse Eisenberg. I feel like he has a similar energy to me.
He's great. That's a great choice. What is the coolest thing, in your opinion, that you have ever experienced?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'd have to think about that. Hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I really enjoy bodyboarding, but I've done it a lot, so it's sort of old hat, but I find it to be a very special experience. But yeah, I've done
Yeah,
it.
I
It's not
love
a once and done for me, but
that. You know what? And it's if it's your coolest thing, that's nice that it's not a one and done. That's nice that
yeah.
you get to do it more. What is a gadget that you can't live without?
I really like my fitness tracker and tracking my steps. Yeah.
I'm like addicted to tracking my steps.
Yeah.
A song, I know she's made an appearance, a song that you would want in your biopic.
Oh, and my biopic. Ooh, that's a tough one. There's so many songs I like, but yeah, for that particular use case, it's hard for me to think of one right now. Let me look at my playlist if you don't mind. You can edit out
Absolutely.
the slowness in a minute. Let's see.
It's okay. It's also giving my dog time to settle in her new spot.
Yeah, let's see. Um, Hmm. In my biopic. Oh gosh, this is really hard. Yeah, I don't know. I'm seeing a lot of songs I like, but they don't fit. Maybe Josh Groban, let's see. Bigger Than Us, maybe. We'll go with that one.
Josh Groban, Bigger Than Us. Like
Yeah.
that. What is a good habit of yours?
A good habit. Uh, this is the first thing coming to mind. I use the water pick. That's made a huge difference. I
I'm
don't know
sure
why someone didn't tell me beforehand. Yeah.
your dentist is like, yes. I like the water pick too. What is the last thing that you Googled?
Oh, last thing that I Googled. I'd have to check, but I've been writing a nonfiction book on a topic, and I think, oh, this is embarrassing. Yeah, but I was writing a book and I wanted to double check my understanding of empathetic versus sympathetic. So I Googled that to make sure that I had that right.
I am right there with you. What is something that you have never done that might surprise people?
Something I've never done. Okay. Yeah, most people I guess wouldn't be surprised I haven't done things since I am somewhat risk averse, but never done. I've never surfed. That might surprise people, given that I enjoy water activities in general. Yeah.
I like that one. If you could only drink one thing for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Water, and that's kind of what I always drink in any case. My brother makes fun of me about it. He's like, "Why is there nothing but water and not milk in the house?" So,
Got to stay hydrated.
yeah.
And what is something you wish you could experience again for the first time?
Ooh, this could get into personal territory, I feel like. I feel like it would be great to relive those first years after graduating college when your adult life is just beginning because it's such a novel experience that's once in a lifetime. And I'm sure that I'm not alone in this, but you. There's fond memories, but there's also mistakes you'd like to undo. So, yeah, that would be what I would choose.
I love that. It's such a magical time because you're so like, oh my gosh, I'm so green to the world. And it's a benefit. Like, not really knowing anything, you can just live your life. And I think that that's an awesome answer. Oh my gosh. Thank you so
Yeah, and
much
it
for
feels like
sharing
that's
that.
what all of your life has been leading to, right? It's like it's all been preparation for this, and you're finally there, and it's been a long runway to get there. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, incredible. Thank you so much, Darren. This has been so much fun. Where can people connect with you if they resonated with what you said today? They wanted to maybe check out your Substack, get some of your resources. Where can they find you?
Yeah, the easiest way is just on no Rules Fiction Substack. And then once they subscribe, they can always shoot me an email. They can reply to any post. So yeah, that's probably the easiest way.
Awesome. And I think that's how you and I connected.
Yes, yeah. And I'm also on LinkedIn, but yeah, Substack might be more
A little bit more
conventional
fun.
or
Yeah.
relevant.
A little bit more fun.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome, Darren. Thank you so much for talking about your top screenwriting lessons with us today. I know I learned a lot. I am feeling very motivated to get back into my screenwriting. And thank you so much for your time and for sharing your wisdom with us.
Oh, thank you, Katie. This was great. I enjoyed talking to you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Take care.
Okay.